Mm.
Looks like we're getting ready to go live. Oh, guess what?
We're live.
We're live. Hello, my name is Brian Martin,
And I'm Jennifer Martin.
and we're better
Better
together.
together. With love.
With love, yes. So, this is our first episode of our new series. It's going to go on for a while. We've got a lot to talk about and to share with you. I hope that you got to see our preview video. I'll leave the link where you can watch all of our videos after this broadcast. So, what we're going to be talking about together is love. Jennifer and I have had an unusually, what would you call it?
Loving.
Loving relationship
Yeah.
for many, many years, several decades.
Really.
And so, over the years and through our experience, we have become rich in love.
You might even say we're relationship billionaires.
I know, isn't that a crazy thing to say?
I don't know if it's so crazy.
Do you
It's so true.
do you feel like you got a sense of responsibility to share some of our wisdom and life experience with other people?
I really do.
I do.
Mhm.
Yeah. And especially, go ahead.
Well, because relationships aren't easy.
No, relationships are not easy. What are they if they're not easy?
Trying, difficult, hard,
Well,
fun.
fun. Okay, I was going to say, well, why would you want to be in a relationship if it's trying and difficult and hard?
It, as your brother-in-law says, you can be lonely or miserable, and he chose miserable.
My brother-in-law said that?
Yeah, he did.
Wow. All right, well, we don't want you to be lonely, we don't want you to be miserable, and we don't want you to suffer during the difficult times that we're experiencing now in COVID 19. Ah, gosh. I'm talking to so many people who've got so much stress going on in their life and sad things happening too. Sad
A
things.
lot of sad things and a lot of really stressful. And then I think just the isolation has created emotional trauma and chaos.
What kind of chaos?
Well, I think that when people are separated either by physical touch or by facial features that they can see a smile or whatever, um, that there becomes a loneliness inside because you can't read people, you don't know what they're thinking. Um, if you can't hug and touch, that oxytocin that's released is limited. And I think there's a lot of people who are feeling the being
The
deprived
effects
of those
those
things.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
So when you combine everything, you've got the economy, you've got COVID, you've got the isolation, you've got national strife and conflict, you've got sharply divided politics. It's just a very, very, very difficult time. And then you throw something like death into it. It's just not a good time. Our friend Gerard Lozano passed away just a few days ago.
It was heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, he's really young, and found out that he was sick. I mean, that he
Just
had
a few
this
weeks
just a few
before.
weeks ago when they diagnosed his disease, and then poof. That's a bummer. I remember going out to dinner with them and
Oh, he always had a
business.
smile.
I know it was really really great, and it's just so sad. So and then my friend Troy Levick, his 24-year-old daughter, passed away. Add that to all the stress. He told me that he's got finals next week, and I said to Troy, "You got to talk to your professors because you're not in a place where you can do that yet." That's a lot. Causes problems. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff.
A lot of stress, and then
Oh gosh.
you think of the people whose economy has totally changed, and who are wondering what they're going to do for work, provide for their families. You have the distance learning that kids are clamoring. I was in a meeting yesterday where every parent there said their kid is saying, I have got to go back to school. And the superintendent said, well, what if it means that the teachers you have now online aren't the same teachers that you have when you go back to school? And so every parent in the room texts their child and said, if you don't have the same teacher when you go back to school, is it going to impact you and your desire to go back? And every parent got the response, no, we want to go back to school. And so for them, that need is there. And the alcoholism and drug abuse right now on
All right, stop. I am overwhelmed with all of the bad stuff. I am just overwhelmed. That is so much stuff.
it is.
All right, so what are we going to do about it? How are we going to share? What kind of wisdom do you have for dealing with all of this stuff that's going on right now?
Well, I have found that I have to do a couple things every day to impact my day, to be able to move forward. And even then, first of all, I think you need to know I'm a person who deals with stress really well. I just put my head down and I keep going, and I believe that there's a way through. And so usually, and I've had you say over the years, you don't seem impacted by stress. And yet in the last week or so, I have been more emotional, and I have had a knot in my stomach all the time. And so what I've realized is that I have to do some care things for me. And so I'm making it really purposeful to say what I'm grateful for. I'm also being very purposeful in my prayers. And I'm also being very purposeful in saying my affirmation. And it's a silly affirmation, but for me it's I am strong, I am brave, I am smart, and I am courageous. And I say that every morning. And for me, those are the things that help me to be able to move forward.
Prayers, affirmations. What was the first one?
Gratitude.
Gratitude is number one thing you mentioned too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So that's a good thing to do. So here's a couple suggestions, and I'm sure you do this. Have some gratitude. What kind of technique or what do you use for gratitude?
Well, it's funny. I've been saying the same thing for gratitude. And I say different gratitudes at different times of the day. So my morning gratitude is I am so thankful that I am here at this time to live this life and to be able to help and encourage others.
Oh.
That's my gratitude.
So you're thankful for this life and being able to help others
at this time.
At this time.
Right.
Okay. Let's just go deeper. Is it okay?
Yeah.
What do you do to help others?
So I think that one of the things that I do to help others is I get up and show up at work every day. I know that sounds funny, right? And yet I think that in itself is an encouragement for others to show up and go to work. And one of the other things is when I walk in, I make it very purposeful to say good morning to everyone I see and to tell them how glad I am that they're there that day. And so I bring love and light into a room.
In spite of how you feel.
In spite of how
Even
I
when
feel.
you've got a knot in your stomach, you do that anyway.
I do.
Okay.
And I feel like, you'll remember the speaker who said, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And sometimes during the day, and it's kind of like what Jared says, he says that when people ask him how he is, he says, if I was any better, I couldn't stand it. Well, my feeling is that sometimes we have to keep telling ourselves that we are strong and brave and courageous and smart. And we have to keep telling ourselves that we are grateful for being here at this time and to be able to help and encourage people. And that has to become our mantra so that those other thoughts are pushed out.
Awesome. I'd like to share a couple ideas too.
That would be great.
But before I do that, do you have an interesting story that you can tell? Because this is going to sound really weird to you, but I have to check my bread. And so, do you have a story that you can tell while I go check my bread?
Do you have one that you can think of?
No.
Huh. Well, why don't you go check your bread and I'll tell you some more.
I'll be right back.
I think another way that that I really work at helping people is to be ready to listen. And I think that sometimes that's just a little thing, and yet I have people stop by my office all during the day and they'll say, "Do you have a minute?" And sometimes it's a problem about business, and sometimes it's just something they want to share. And I think it's really important that we realize that even the act of listening can bring encouragement and hope and comfort to someone. And so that's one of the things that I also realize, that during this time I need to be very willing to listen to people who want to talk. I did it.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks.
You want to update on my bread? So one of the things that I do to help cope is that I like to make bread. For the last several weeks, I've been making a loaf of bread on Saturday mornings, and I found this wonderful recipe. And it's a 100% stone ground whole wheat bread. So there's no additives that it's made with 100% stone ground whole wheat. There's no other flour in it except 100% stone ground whole wheat. I use honey and butter, a little bit of salt, and of course the yeast into it, and do that, and I make a beautiful loaf of bread that tastes so good, and it's good for you too.
It's really good.
So what happened was that I'm making bread this morning, right? And so what happened was that it was on the second rise, and I had to get it before it started spilling all over, and I got it just at the right time.
And you put it in the oven?
I put it in the oven, so it's going to be cooking while we're talking.
The hard thing about him making bread is that when it comes out of the oven, you want to cut it and you want to use a cube of butter on it. But we don't.
So the things that you use to cope with all the stress and everything that's going on, and there's a lot of stress. Do you feel the stress like I do?
Yes.
It is a lot.
And for a
right
person
now.
who usually doesn't feel stress, it's a lot of stress.
It's a lot. I feel a lot of stress right now. So, my turn?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So tell me, how do you deal with stress?
I'm so glad you asked. Well, over the years, I have been through, and you have too, some really, really challenging times. And I'm going to go all the way back to 1960s.
Wow.
And into the 5th grade. And when I was in the 5th grade in 1960, on November 22nd in 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated. And I remember that. And there was huge upheaval in the world. And then after 63, there was the civil rights movement that continued. And I remember driving through Los Angeles when there were riots in the 60s.
Do you remember, I think it was before 63, that we would have drills at school where you'd hide under your desk?
I do. You have to hide under your desk and you have to get into the position. I don't know what good that would do.
I don't
If there
either.
was a nuclear bomb that came, what's that going to do, right?
Yeah, but that's what they had us do.
But that was the mindset. The Cold War was going on. In 68, Martin Luther King was assassinated. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. There was the Democratic National Convention. 4 students were killed in Ohio State, Kent State, and Ohio. And all this, the Vietnam War and everything was going on, and it was a terrible time. And I remember going through that time, and I made it. And then going through the 70s and our experience of getting together, getting married, and all that stuff, and then all the transitions. Everything that I've been through, somehow or another, I've always survived. And then more recently, when I've had this thought about my own life, and that, my life is inextricably connected to what's happened with my ancestors. And I like to think about my ancestors 1,000 generations ago, before there was any history or writing or anything. I like to imagine what they were experiencing and how they survived. And they survived long enough to produce children, so that my DNA came from them. And I like to think that somehow or another I am actually 1,000 generations old because of the DNA that's in there. And I feel so connected with them, and I think about their struggles. And the struggle that we're experiencing now it's nothing. So I relativize my anxiety. It's not that I don't feel it, I feel it, but I relativize it. I say, listen, this is just a blip in time. And yeah, we haven't experienced anything like this before, but people, my ancestors, and everybody else has survived all this. And so I know that I'm going to survive this also. And you know what? If I don't survive this, I've already been able to pass my ideas, my DNA, onto other people. And it's going to continue on, perhaps for another 1,000 generations. I don't know how long the human race is going to last, until Jesus comes back or until we peter out as a society. But so I feel like, wow, I can't pay so much attention to what's going on now. I know that sounds strange to you, but it was your coach that told this to me. And it was just a few weeks ago. And this is something that's really helped me. Maybe this will help you. Is that right now we're so busy in this stuff that our nose is in the dirt. And we're just there all the time. And we can't see beyond the dirt because all that we can see is right there. She said, you need to go up 50,000 feet. And then you need to look down. And when you go up 50,000 feet and you look down, the world, is a lot smaller. And it's a lot more manageable. And you can, and if you go up in time, I like to go up in time too. And I like to look, I can see the expanse of time. And I can see when I am just DNA in my descendants, my progeny. I'm just that. And I can see it. And I'm going, oh, wow. And those people are trying to cope. And so what I can do is I can be aware of what's going on here now, but I can also know, you know what? There's nothing that has happened among human beings that is new and unusual, including crises like this one. And we have survived, and we have thrived. And so I know this is tough. I feel the anxiety. It's there, but I have a perspective that I'm moving forward with that.
One of the things that makes us really better together
Mm-hmm.
is that you're the thinker. You think, and you have deep thoughts, and then you share them, which I think is always so good because it helps my day-to-day, one day at a time, one step at a time, focus to be broader.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways that we've, over 46 years, really grown together, is I share, I think, in our relationship, more of the practical everyday, and you bring the focus of life.
Well, I'll tell you, what I also do the practical everyday stuff, but what I do is I do it like you did, a tremendous amount of self-care. And I like to think that what I am is that I'm a leader in self-care at home.
You are.
And I demonstrate it by the things that I do. And one of the most difficult aspects of the stress right now is the family dynamics and what that does, because family dynamics make it feel like everything is so critical, and the family dynamics make it feel like it's a crisis right now and it's got to be dealt with immediately, and if it's not, then a catastrophe is going to happen. And that's a really powerful mindset when that happens in families. You know what I mean?
It is.
That sense of urgency. And what happens when that kicks in is that it actually affects your brain. And right back here, your amygdala is the fear and the flight area, and that's where your brain secretes the adrenaline and the cortisol and those chemicals, which are really great for fighting saber-toothed tigers,
And we don't have any.
but not so helpful for dealing with conflicts with families. But it's the same mechanism. It's the same mechanism that my ancestors had when they were struggling for existence. Only now the struggle's in our kitchen and in our living room, where we're at each other's throats, it seems like, and dealing with it, and there's a tremendous amount of anxiety. So that's a different set of coping mechanisms for that.
So I think that one of the things we should highlight is what people can do to cope with stress, and to just kind of enumerate them. So if anybody wants to write down some of the things that they would have that to go back to in the next weeks to come.
Mm-hmm. All right, I can help with that. I actually have a list of 25 things.
Oh, that would be great.
But I don't have it at my fingertip right now. But I can tell you a bunch of them.
Could we
that are
even
really
give
helpful.
10 right now?
We probably can. You want to write them down?
Okay, I'll write them down. I'll also give the first one,
Okay.
which is, for me, be grateful. Attitude of gratitude.
Okay. My first one is to control my thoughts. Most people don't even know what a thought is, much less that they actually have control over their thoughts. Most people's thoughts just run away, and it goes off into wild ruminations and fear and all that. But I have learned how to control my thoughts. And so I know that thought is just a biological process, and I can control my thoughts. And so that's the one thing I do, is I control my thoughts.
Well, that's really a good one.
Mm-hmm. You know how I control my thoughts?
How do you do that?
Well, in my paradigm, in the way that I think about things, there are two types of thoughts. There are negative thoughts, and you know what the opposite of negative thoughts are? You know. Do you know what the opposite of a negative thought is?
It's
Let me
not
see.
positive.
Oh, it's not positive thinking. No, actually, I'm not a big fan of positive thinking. But I have some critics that will say, yes, you are. You're an idealistic, and
You have critics?
yeah, I do. And but anyway, they don't understand the power of the second kind of thinking.
So may I share it?
Yes, you may.
It's loving thoughts.
Loving thoughts, yes. So what I do is that I eliminate 100% of my negative thoughts. Can you imagine that?
I can.
Try doing that for 24 hours.
I have, and I'm not as
It's
successful
very,
as you
yeah.
are.
So my affirmation is, I eliminate 100% of my negative thinking. Yeah. But you know what? I had to add a caveat to that.
And what's your caveat?
My caveat is, except when I don't. And then I go back to my eliminating my negative thinking and re-engage in loving thoughts. So here's the entire mantra. I think I eliminate 100% of my negative thinking, except when I don't. And when I catch myself, I revert back and I eliminate my negative thinking. So there's a cycle there.
That's really nice.
Yes.
And
So
maybe that's two, and
that's
maybe
two.
we just talk about two. I know that for me, when I catch myself in a listening to the wrong messages,
Mm-hmm.
that I and I started this way back when I was a young mom, but I would visualize a radio
Mm-hmm.
and turning the channel. And so I still, to this day, when I catch myself in a spiraling downward negative thought process, I see that old radio and I turn the dial. and hear something different. So for me, it's a visualization and an action that I actually see myself turning the dial.
And that works.
That works for me.
It's a really good technique.
You know what else works for me?
What else?
So the other day I was really grieving, and not about a death. It was just a personal grieving, and I said to myself, how long are you going to allow yourself to grieve and to be upset? And I said, I'm going to give myself until after noon.
So you give yourself a time.
Yeah.
Time.
And at 1 o'clock, it was literally 1 o'clock, I looked at my clock and I said, okay, I'm moving on now. And that's behind me, and I'm going to move forward. That works for me. It may not work for everybody.
Well, that's taking control of your thinking, and it's setting yourself up to do something about that.
Well, and for me, it's also about saying we all have areas of our life that are hurtful, or that we're grieving, or that we're angry, and if we can recognize those, I don't think there's anything wrong in recognizing it and saying, I'm really angry, and being able to stop it at some point is what I think is important. Is, okay, I've been angry now for 15 minutes. I'm through. You know?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got two things. We've got an attitude of gratitude, and we've got controlling thoughts, and we have time for maybe one or two more.
So I think another thing that I do is look for ways I can help.
Oh, okay.
So I'll write it down.
All right. Looking for ways that you can help. And I think that's really important also, because here's the thing about negative thinking. When you are stuck in negative thinking, you can't be loving, you can't be creative, you can't you can't use your gifts and your skills and your talents because your negativity robs you of your ability, because you can only focus on one or a few things at a time because you're a human being. And so if you're focused on the negativity, if you're focused on the darkness, then you can't see the light, and you can't be creative, you can't solve problems, and you're really, really stuck. And so one of the things you can do is you can engage in helping other people. When you engage in helping other people, it distracts you from your negative thinking. So if your negative thinking distracts you from your loving thinking, helping other people distracts you from your negative thinking.
It really does.
Yes, it does. It's probably one of the most powerful ways to move forward and to control stress is by helping other people. Because this is such a huge topic, because all of a sudden you're part of a community when you're helping other people. And community is one of the most important things for us to be involved in and participate. We feel belonging, we feel like our life has meaning, we have significance, and so helping helps in a dozen different ways to help us to move forward and to cope with all of the things that are going on. And so really what creative families are doing now is that creative families are figuring out what they can do to help other people.
They are.
So they got the stress, okay, and they've got the kids are at home, and they're got online school and all that kind of stuff, and there's all the dynamics that are going on. But really creative people are the ones who are helping families with small children. They're identifying an individual or a cause or something like that, and they're devoting time to help.
So one of my Facebook friends posted on Facebook today, and she's a teacher, so she's doing the distance learning, and she has little kids at home of her own. So can you imagine trying to do your online teaching, and I believe she's elementary school, and then having your own little children that they're supposed to be doing their online school, but you have to interact to make sure that they're still doing their online school and not watching the YouTube station that they love. And And so she opened her door this morning, and there on her porch was a basket with tea and fun little cookies and um, all sorts of things. I think there was a candle in there, and one of her students' families had brought the basket over.
Isn't that nice? All right, so that underscores the thing about helping people, which is really simple, is that it only takes little things. One of the things that I like to do is to drop a note in the mail to somebody. And when I do that, then I know that they like getting the letter. But when I write out a note, I am not thinking negative thoughts. I am controlling my negativity. And when I'm thinking and I'm writing out what I want to say, the words that I want to convey to the other so that they might have a positive, a loving impact in their lives, I'm too busy focusing on that to be thinking about negative things. And I know that when I put that in the mail, I have a feeling of satisfaction. But it's just a little thing.
It's just a little
A
thing.
little cup of tea is a little thing. You know, and all those little things, they help us to cope with the negativity in our world.
For both parties, right?
For both
For
parties.
the giver and for the receiver.
Yeah.
So I think that we've shared.
Oh my gosh, time
Mhm.
flies by. Okay, well, we have a lot more to share with you, and so we hope that you'll join us every week. And you can see all of our videos at the link that it's supplied below. And if it's not there now, don't worry about it. I haven't put it in yet. But come back to this particular place, and that link will be there, and you can see this video and all the other videos that we have as well. This is our first episode of We're Better Together
With love.
And we're looking forward to talking with you again, and we hope that you have a beautiful day. God bless you, and we love you. Smile.